It emerges when you stop running from them. There is a very common belief that inner peace means the absence of problems, the absence of pain, the absence of difficult emotions. But Jung saw things differently. He believed that true peace is born from integration, not from denial. We all carry parts of ourselves that we would rather hide. Fears, insecurities, anger, jealousy, shame, emotional needs, contradictory desires, aspects that do not fit the image we would like to present to the world. These parts make up what Jung called the shadow. And the problem is not having a shadow. The problem is pretending it does not exist, because whatever we reject within ourselves continues to operate. It continues to influence our behavior. It continues to appear in conflicts. It continues to shape our choices. True transformation begins when you stop fighting these parts and start understanding them, not to justify destructive behaviors, but to consciously integrate them. When that happens, something surprising emerges. You stop wasting energy trying to maintain a perfect image. You stop fighting internal battles, you stop running from yourself, and you discover a much deeper kind of peace, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, because it is born from accepting your own humanity. Many people believe that getting their life in order simply means creating an efficient routine, waking up early, sticking to a schedule, keeping an organized calendar. While these things can certainly help, they do not represent true change, because someone can have an impeccable routine and still feel a profound emptiness. They can appear successful on the outside while feeling completely lost on the inside. Carl Jung believed there is a huge difference between living a functional life and living an authentic life. A functional person can survive. An authentic person can express who they truly are. And that difference changes everything. According to Jung, there is a silent drive within every human being that seeks fulfillment, an inner force that tries to guide you toward what you were truly meant to become. He called this process individuation. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. It means letting go of the personas you created to please others. It means no longer living solely to meet external expectations. It means stopping the performance of roles and beginning to build a life aligned with your true essence. But there is a problem. Most people spend years avoiding this encounter with themselves. They stay busy, distracted, overwhelmed, not because they enjoy chaos, but because chaos is often more comfortable than facing certain truths. As long as you remain distracted, you do not have to confront your insecurities. You do not have to question your choices. You do not have to admit that you may be living a life that does not reflect who you truly are. That is why getting your life in order goes far beyond putting things in place. It is the beginning of a process of inner honesty. It means asking yourself, what is out of alignment within me? What am I ignoring? Which parts of my personality have I abandoned in order to be accepted? These questions can be uncomfortable, but they are the ones that initiate true transformation, because every lasting change begins when you stop running from yourself and start listening to what your soul has been trying to tell you for years. Have you ever noticed how some people seem trapped in the same problems, the same conflicts, the same frustrations, the same kinds of relationships, the same financial struggles, the same disappointments? Many of them believe all of this happens because of bad luck. But Jung observed something intriguing. What we fail to face consciously tends to return repeatedly throughout our lives, as if reality itself were trying to get our attention. He said that whatever remains unconscious eventually directs our lives, and when that happens, we call it fate. Think about it for a moment. How many situations do you keep repeating without understanding why? How many times have you promised yourself you would change certain behaviors only to fall back into the same patterns? This happens because there is a difference between solving a problem and understanding its origin. When the root remains hidden, the problem simply changes form. The shadow continues to operate. In Jungian psychology, the shadow represents everything we reject within ourselves: fears, wounds, desires, vulnerabilities, aspects of our personality that we prefer to ignore. But what we ignore does not disappear. It continues working behind the scenes, influencing decisions, creating conflicts, generating automatic behaviors, and often producing the very chaos we are trying to fight. That is why external disorder can be an invitation, a sign, a message from your own psyche. Perhaps the problem is not simply a lack of organization. Perhaps there is something within you asking for attention, something that needs to be understood, something that needs to be integrated. When you begin to look at yourself with honesty, many things start to change. You stop blaming only the circumstances. You stop fighting the symptoms and you begin working on the real cause. That is the moment when order stops being an obligation and becomes a natural consequence of inner alignment. There is a question that very few people ask themselves: who takes control of your consciousness during the first few minutes of your day, you or the world? For most people, the day begins the same way. The alarm goes off. The phone is unlocked, messages appear, news updates arrive, notifications invade their attention, and before they even get out of bed, their mind is already reacting to dozens of external stimuli. Without realizing it, they hand over control of their own consciousness. The problem is that whatever occupies your mind first thing in the morning tends to influence the rest of your day. Jung believed that human beings need to create moments of connection with themselves, moments in which the inner voice can be heard. Because the self, the deepest center of the personality, does not compete with the noise of the world. It reveals itself in silence, in observation, in presence. That is why so many people spend the entire day busy and yet still feel disconnected from themselves. They never stop to listen to what exists within them. They live reacting, rushing, consuming, but rarely observing. Imagine two people. The first wakes up and immediately dives into distractions. The second sets aside a few minutes to breathe, reflect, and observe their own thoughts. Over the course of months, these small choices produce completely different results. One lives constantly pulled around by circumstances. The other develops an increasingly solid inner center. And it is precisely this inner center that makes it possible to face challenges without losing direction. Starting the day with presence is not a productivity technique. It is a psychological act. It is a quiet declaration that you will not be automatically driven by external chaos. It is the conscious choice to return to yourself before facing the world. Because when you begin the day connected to your own awareness, something changes. Decisions become clearer, emotions become less reactive, and life no longer feels like a series of random events. You begin to move through life with intention. And every profound transformation begins right there. There is a reason why so many people feel constantly busy, yet rarely make real progress. It is not a lack of intelligence, it is not a lack of potential, and often it is not even a lack of discipline. The real problem is that they live in a constant state of fragmentation. Their attention is scattered in every direction. One thought interrupts another. A notification interrupts a task. A worry interrupts a decision. And little by little, the mind loses its ability to go deep. Carl Jung understood something that seems more relevant today than ever. Whatever captures your attention ultimately shapes your inner reality. Your mind is not merely a place where thoughts happen, it is fertile ground, and whatever you feed will grow. If you feed distraction, you cultivate scatteredness. If you feed noise, you cultivate confusion. If you feed constant comparison, you cultivate dissatisfaction. The problem is that most people do not even realize how much of their energy is being drained every day. They believe they are tired because of work, but often they are exhausted because their attention never gets a chance to rest, because their psychological system never has the space to process what they feel. The unconscious needs silence in order to express itself. It needs pauses. It needs moments when the ego stops chasing stimuli and simply observes. It is in those moments that the most important insights emerge, the answers you have been searching for, the realizations that change your decisions, the truths that were hidden beneath layers of distraction. That is why reducing distractions is not merely a productivity strategy. It is an act of protecting your own consciousness. Every time you choose silence over excessive stimulation, you strengthen your connection with yourself. And few things are more valuable than that. Most people believe they need more money, more recognition, more possessions, more experiences, more validation. But they rarely ask themselves a fundamental question: what exactly am I trying to fill? Because there is a huge difference between need and compensation. Need generates growth. Compensation generates dependency. In Jung's view, many of the excesses we carry have deep psychological roots. We accumulate possessions to fill emotional voids. We accumulate commitments to avoid dealing with loneliness. We accumulate distractions to escape silence. We accumulate relationships to avoid facing the fear of being alone with ourselves. And the more we accumulate, the farther we move from what truly matters. The problem with excess is not only that it takes up physical space, it also takes up psychological space. Every unnecessary obligation, every purposeless habit, every attachment that has already lost its meaning, all of it consumes mental energy. And that energy is no longer available for what truly matters. That is why the process of transformation almost always involves a stage of simplification. Not because living with less is a rule, but because being surrounded by what is unnecessary makes it harder to see what truly has value. There is something liberating about removing from your life what no longer reflects who you are. You breathe more easily, you think more clearly, you make decisions with greater awareness, and you realize that much of the weight you were carrying was never really necessary. Sometimes growth does not require adding something new. It simply requires the courage to let go of what no longer makes sense. Few words are as difficult for some people as the word no, because saying no creates discomfort. It creates guilt. It creates fear of rejection. It creates anxiety about disappointing someone. That is why many people spend years saying yes to things they do not truly want. Yes to commitments that drain them. Yes to relationships that hurt them. Yes to expectations that are not their own. But there is a silent price for that. Every time you abandon yourself to please others, a part of your energy disappears, and little by little you begin to feel something that is difficult to explain. A kind of emptiness, a constant fatigue, a sense that you are living only to meet external demands. Jung understood that the process of individuation requires differentiation. You do not discover who you are while trying to be everything for everyone. You discover who you are when you begin to recognize your own limits, when you understand what you accept and what you do not accept, what belongs to you and what belongs to others. People with healthy boundaries are not necessarily harsher, they are more conscious. They understand that protecting their energy is not selfishness. It is responsibility, because those who constantly abandon themselves to please others eventually lose touch with their own truth. And without inner truth, there can be no authenticity. There is only adaptation. Saying no is not about closing doors. It is about preserving space for what truly matters. It is a quiet affirmation. My life has value. My energy has value, my time has value, and that awareness changes everything. It emerges when you stop running from them. There is a very common belief that inner peace means the absence of problems, the absence of pain, the absence of difficult emotions. But Jung saw things differently. He believed that true peace is born from integration, not from denial. We all carry parts of ourselves that we would rather hide: fears, insecurities, anger, jealousy, shame, emotional needs, contradictory desires, aspects that do not fit the image we would like to present to the world. These parts make up what Jung called the shadow. And the problem is not having a shadow, the problem is pretending it does not exist. Because whatever we reject within ourselves continues to operate. It continues to influence our behavior. It continues to appear in conflicts. It continues to shape our choices. True transformation begins when you stop fighting these parts and start understanding them. Not to justify destructive behaviors, but to consciously integrate them. When that happens, something surprising emerges. You stop wasting energy trying to maintain a perfect image. You stop fighting internal battles. You stop running from yourself, and you discover a much deeper kind of peace. A peace that does not depend on circumstances, because it is born from accepting your own humanity. Few people realize how much their lives are influenced by what they consume every day. Every video, every conversation, every environment, every piece of content, every repeated thought. All of these leave impressions on the psyche, and over time, those impressions become beliefs, emotions, and behaviors. That is why attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. Where your energy remains, your life develops. If your attention is trapped in fear, fear grows. If it is trapped in comparison, comparison grows. If it is trapped in chaos, chaos grows. Jung understood that consciousness does not strengthen by accident. It requires choice. It requires presence. It requires discernment. That is why reclaiming control of your attention means reclaiming control of your direction. It means stopping the automatic absorption of everything around you. It means beginning to ask, does this strengthen me or weaken me? Does this bring me closer to or farther from the person I want to become? This simple shift in perspective can completely transform the quality of your life. Because what you protect today becomes what you will be tomorrow. There is a question that few people have the courage to answer honestly. Is the life you are building truly yours, or is it merely the result of expectations that others have placed upon you? From an early age, we are taught what we should be, what we should desire, what we should achieve, what we should avoid. And without realizing it, we spend years following scripts we never consciously chose. Carl Jung observed that many individuals become disconnected from their true nature because they are busy trying to live up to images created by the outside world. They seek approval, they seek recognition, they seek security. But the more they pursue these goals without reflection, the more they experience a strange sense of emptiness, because there is a difference between success and meaning. A person can achieve everything they once dreamed of and still feel that something is missing. They can reach impressive milestones and continue carrying a quiet sense of disconnection. This happens because purpose is not born from what the world expects of you. It is born from what your soul is trying to express through you. In Jung's view, there is a unique direction within every individual, a path that cannot be copied. An inner calling that gradually reveals itself throughout life. But listening to that voice requires courage, because it does not always point toward the most comfortable places. Sometimes it calls for change. Sometimes it demands sacrifice. Sometimes it invites you to let go of older versions of yourself, and that is frightening. The ego seeks predictability. It seeks control. It seeks certainty. But the self seeks fulfillment. It seeks truth. It seeks wholeness. That is why living with purpose does not mean having all the answers. It means being willing to listen to the right questions. What makes you feel alive? What awakens your energy? What continues to capture your attention even when no one is watching? These questions reveal important clues, because whatever holds genuine meaning for your soul will always find a way to return to your awareness. And the more you learn to listen to that call, the less your life feels like a series of obligations. It begins to become a journey, a unique journey, an authentic journey, a journey that finally belongs to you. Many people wait for an extraordinary event to transform their lives. A great insight, a perfect opportunity, a sudden change, a defining moment. But the truth is that most profound transformations happen almost invisibly. They happen in silence, away from the spotlight, away from grand declarations, away from dramatic promises. Jung often used alchemy as a symbol of psychological transformation. Ancient alchemists believed it was possible to turn ordinary metals into gold. But for Jung, that image represented something far more important. It represented the transformation of consciousness itself. The process of turning confusion into clarity, fear into courage, fragmentation into integration. And this alchemy does not happen all at once. It happens through small choices repeated every day. Every time you choose reflection instead of reaction. Every time you choose awareness instead of autopilot. Every time you face a difficult truth instead of running from it. A transformation is taking place, even if no one notices, even if the results are not yet visible. The problem is that we live in a culture obsessed with quick results. We want instant change. We want immediate proof. We want to feel progress all the time, but the soul moves to a different rhythm. It works in depth. It works in silence. It works through repetition. Just as a tree grows without making a sound, true transformation happens quietly. First it changes the way you think, then it changes the way you feel, then it changes the way you act, and only then does it begin to change your reality. That is why small habits matter so much, because they do not just transform your days, they transform your identity. Every conscious choice strengthens a new version of yourself. Every act of presence weakens old patterns. Every moment of self-awareness expands your inner freedom, and when you look back after months or years, you realize something extraordinary. You did not become someone else. You became more fully yourself, more aware, more whole, more aligned, closer to what had always been trying to emerge from within. That is true alchemy, not the creation of someone new, but the revelation of who you truly were from the very beginning. In the end, getting your life in order was never just about schedules, tasks, or productivity. It has always been about consciousness. It has always been about alignment. It has always been about learning to create order within yourself so that it can manifest in your outer world. Carl Jung taught us that the greatest adventure in life is not conquering the world. It is conquering yourself. It is bringing light to what was hidden. It is integrating the forgotten parts of your soul. It is transforming the unconscious into consciousness. Throughout this video, you have seen that true change begins when you choose to live more authentically. Face your inner chaos. Instead of running from it, begin your days with presence. Protect your attention. Eliminate unnecessary excess. Learn to establish healthy boundaries. Make peace with your shadow. Reclaim your psychological autonomy. Listen to the call of your purpose and understand that transformation happens through small daily habits. None of these steps are spectacular, but together they have the power to completely change a life, because true growth rarely happens through dramatic events. It happens through quiet decisions that no one sees, but that profoundly shape who you become. And now I would like to leave you with a Question: which of these lessons speaks most deeply to your life right now? Which one do you feel you need to put into practice immediately? Write your answer in the comments. I read every comment, and I enjoy following the reflections that emerge here in our community. If this video brought value to you, leave a like and subscribe to the channel to continue exploring the ideas of Carl Jung, self-discovery, depth psychology, and personal transformation. Remember, life changes when consciousness changes, and consciousness changes when you have the courage to look within. See you in the next video.